instinct can fall into fear. It doesn't have to, but it can. And so we want to watch out for that. And this is what I'm talking about avoiding the potential pitfalls, because the gates of the spleen also have beautiful positive attributes that you want to find out about. And the best thing you can do during this time is learn about those gates, learn what their fears are, but also look at what their empowered and awakened expression are as well. Because if you find yourself falling into any of the fears that are associated with the spleen center, what you can do, and this is one of the things I love about human design, is you can look at, okay, but what's the positive attribute with this? Now, the best place to look for that is in the Encyclopedia of Quantum Human Design. If you don't already have this, this is a great reference book, and it has definitely more awakened and more empowered expressions of all of the aspects of the system, but particularly the gates. So let's take a look at the fear gates. Okay, so these are all the fear gates of the spleen, and you can screenshot this so that you have this for yourself. Let's just talk about them briefly. Okay, so the gate 57, its fear is the fear of the future. It's highly intuitive. It's known as the most intuitive gate in the whole chart. So with that kind of level of intuition, you could be projecting fear out into the future, right? And getting anxious about that in the present moment. So you want to watch out for that in yourself. If you find yourself projecting fear into the future, which is happening a lot on the planet right now because we are facing a lot of challenges, as a species and as our planet. So it is pretty common right now that people are projecting their fears into the future. But what you want to be able to do is wind yourself back into the present moment and ask for your inner being, which you're connecting with through your strategy and your authority in human design. You want to ask that part to help you to just be purely in intuition and letting the fear dissipate. Now, the gate 44 has the fear of the past. Its more awakened or empowered expression is really about truth. And it's about helping us to be able to tell the truth about the past. And many times what we need to do is retell a story that we've been carrying around with us for a long time to be able to say, you know what, I don't really need to have that story anymore. A lot of times kids, for example, tell a story, their parents are fighting, right? And then eventually their parents decide that they're better off without each other as parents in the marriage. And so they separate, right? And then the kid makes up a story that it's their fault because, they're the one who left their bike out in the rain, and then their bike got hurt, and then their parents fought about it, and then their parents split up. And so the kid decides, oh, that means it was my fault because I left my bike out in the rain, that my parents split up. And you can be carrying around a story like that inside of you for a long time. So this is one of those things that you want to kind of unravel in yourself and say, wait a minute, I was a kid. I left my bike out in the rain. Was that really my fault? And did it really have anything to do with my parents splitting up? This is how you can retell a story about the past to be more empowered for yourself now. You're not carrying around some kind of trauma imprint about what happened when you were a kid. So this is about telling a more accurate truth from the present moment about the past. The 48, the fear of the 48 is the fear of not knowing enough. It is a gate that's all about wisdom. It's all about our deeper sense of knowing. It is in the logic circuit, so it does have that quality. We're going to talk a lot about the 48 actually in this report today, so you'll hear more about it. But I'll just say here is whenever you start to feel like you don't know enough with this, you can be like, do I really not know enough? Because the people I know with the 48 defined in their charts, and I am one of them, tend to know more than most other people about whatever it is they get interested in. And yet they always have this fear that they don't know enough. The gate 18, which is active here through the October 1st, is the fear of getting it wrong, right? It's the gate of correction or the gate of realignment. And so it can really get into wanting to make sure that everything is right. And it can project that energy out onto other people as well. So what you want to be able to do is just dial in and say, how can we realign things and bring in more order without a lot of judgment? That's the way to really get out of that fear with the 18. With the gate 50, the fear of the 50 is the fear of letting people down. So this is tribal circuitry, and it is in the defense circuit. So it's kind of with our close in people, right? Our families, our close in communities, and so on. And so we can have this fear of letting people down. Like, we want to be able to support people, but this can really lead to over functioning and over giving and depleting yourself because you're trying to do what you think everybody else wants you to do. And not being really in touch with what is true for you and what you need to do for you. You can lose yourself in this, right? So, but the 50 also is this beautiful energy about how we know who we are as a people, what our values are, and how we can be just kind of acting appropriately for what our standards are. Like use your words, don't hit, right? Things like that. And so the 50 has a really beautiful energy, but you want to watch out for this fear of letting people down, because it can lead you away from your own inner guidance by trying to really take care where you don't need to. And then the gate 32 has this fear of failure. It's all about having this energy for having a big business idea. It's in the commerce circuit of the tribal circuit. And so it really is that kind of like this energy for being able to hold on to this idea until the time is right. But its fear is that it's going to fail. It's not going to know when the time is right. And then when it's going to bring it out and that idea is really going to fail, or that somebody's going to steal it. That's the other thing that goes with this. Somebody's going to steal your business idea, right? So with this, you want to just be like having a reality check with yourself. It's like, is this really going to fail? Is this something I'm just making up and projecting into my future? Is somebody really going to steal my stuff? Or again, am I just making this up? So have a reality check with yourself so you can move through that fear. And then the 28. The 28, the gate of struggle or the gate of adventure or challenge is its fear is the fear of life is meaningless. It's very existential. And so it can be a deep, kind of dark one. I have this defined in my chart. I have the whole channel. And so the 28 is really a good one to have another reality check for yourself, right? Like what kind of deep, dark hole am I falling into if I'm falling into that fear of the 28? Whereas instead, I could embrace life's challenges as an adventure. Like, what is this calling me to grow inside of myself so that I can be fully empowered in my life? Because, our challenges are here for us to grow. I mean, generally speaking, some of them we could be like, I'd rather not have that one. But, this is actually how we become more and more mature, how we empower ourselves is through meeting challenges. So that's what you want to do with the 28 is turn that kind of existential, nothing means anything. I'm kind of like, your energy's kind of like this, right? You want to perk it up and say, I'm ready for the challenge. Let's go for it. Now, I'm going through these in some detail, and you can come back over the course of the month when each one of them is lit up, and I will be covering these in the individual transit reports as well. But the reason that I'm going through this is that fear is really strong on the planet right now. I mean, we do have war breaking out in different parts of the planet. We have had war, but it's happening on a different scale and a different way. And I know that is creating a lot of fear for people. Here in the United States, we have a really big election that's coming up. That can definitely stimulate your fears as well. We have all kinds of earth changes that are happening. We just had a major hurricane come in here in the United States. We had this major flooding in Europe, all kinds of stuff, right? There's all kinds of things that if you're focusing on the outer world, it can stimulate your fear. And then if these gates are being lit up by that spleen center, there's just a lot of energy on that spleen. And you also want to look as if you have electromagnetics, which means the matching gate of any of these to be like, oh, wow, because that could mean that any one of the other centers can be getting lit up for you and your spleen can getting defined if you don't already have a defined spleen. So there's a lot going on here. And so the best thing that I can say to you at this point with this is make sure that you're really taking the time to ground yourself, to breathe, to drink water, to lie on the earth, to sit with your back up against a tree, to spend some time out in the living world, because that always helps to dissipate our fear, as long as you're not in the middle of a hurricane or something. But generally, it really helps to dissipate our fear. And you can even ask the earth to take your fear, or you can take, if you go to the ocean or a river, or if you're even in a forest, you can say, I really want to release this energy out into the cosmic compost where it can be recycled for the highest good of all, because it's really just energy, and it's how we interpret it that makes us feel fear. And in our breathwork community, we say that fear is excitement without breath. So if you breathe in breath, whether that's just doing long, deep breaths, or if you join me doing some of the Kundalini yoga practices that I offer inside of my community, there's lots of different ways that you can shift the way that you're interpreting that energy. And I think that if you do that for yourself this month, you're going to find that you're going to get a lot of relief from, kind of the intensity of what's going